These were the opening moves of Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces and Grandmaster Narayanan playing with white, an Indian blitz beast. It's round 10 of Titled Tuesday, the greatest online event every single week, and what I love about this game is never underestimate the power of the bishops. All to come, let's check it out here. Magnus invites a Sicilian, but it's declined. We see pawn to g3, Narayanan wants to boogie with those bishops. Now we see b6 from Magnus, anything you can do, I can do better, and both players tuck their bishops into the banana hammock. There's a stare off, chicken, who's going to blink first? We see castles played, Narayanan making every chess coach proud, getting that king to safety on move 4, and Magnus says, you know what, let's go bro. Pawn to g6, I'm going to build a second banana hammock, get both bishops tucked in. We see pawn d4 taking the centre. Magnus continues with the plan, singing operatically as he goes, and look at those bishops crossing swords with devastating effect. Now the engine here wants d5, it loves playing with the space, but c3 selected by white. Magnus goes knight f6 and queen b3 sets up some tricky dicky stuff, because after Magnus takes on d4, very principled, do we see pawn recaptures, the most natural move in the world? No, we get knight to e5. What is that about? Opening the bishops. Can't you just take here, then recapture on c3, win a second pawn? Well no, you just blundered, checkmate in one. There was a bit of misdirection going on there, a la Peter Lecco. This is the problem with trying to pick up this bishop on g2, then win a pawn. So instead, d5 from Magnus blunts that queen's influence. Now we see c takes on d4, castles, knight c3, knight c6, Magnus slumps in his chair at this point, almost falling asleep, dead symmetrical, dead boring. We get takes on c6 and bishop recaptures. That one more atrocious than modern Star Wars, stuck behind its own colour pawn complex. But wait, some imbalances do come soon. Hold your horses. We get bishop to g5. Now pawn e6 played, rook f to c1. Why not go with this one? Well, that one's got a special job reserved, as we'll see. Magnus goes queen d7, breaks that pin, and now a move which seems strange to the untrained eye. Bishop takes on f6, voluntarily giving up the bishops, but it was done so that after captures you can go pawn e3 and you've not got issues with the dark squared bishop running out of space. No time to retreat. Now why would you give up the bishops? Well, after rook fb8 we see one of the points here. There's only one open file on the board. It's a closed position. Bishop struggling closed positions. White's first to said file, so white has a microscopic advantage, but not much. We get pawn a4. This is why the rook stayed on the a1 square. Now bishop e7, very natural, and bishop f1, finding the best diagonal, looking for bishop a6. Magnus says no thank you, stops that one. Now we see bishop d3 and king g7, very tidy chess. Knight e2 played, we're about to see the point. Queen d6 from Magnus, preparing to tuck back the bishop. We get rook c3 and Narayanan is preparing to stack 19 points of material on that file. So bishop d7, queen c2 and rook c8 comes just in time. You've got to fight for the only open file. It's critical. We see rook captures. This rook takes back, hits the white queen, it slides back into b3, and now I love this move. Magnus understands pawn structures very well. He plays pawn a5, cementing the weakness of a4, and after knight c3, eyeing the newly weakened square, we see a great move from Magnus, queen to b4. He lets out an involuntary bleat. He's the goat of endgames here. He'd love to see the ladies leave the board. It is the top move of the engine, but there's something about it that Narayanan doesn't like. Maybe just the fact he's playing Magnus Carlsen. So he drops back with his queen. Now we see bishop c6. We'll see the point in the moment, the maneuver it's going on, but first we get a little bit of tickle. Narayanan goes first, He targets Carlsen's armpit, hitting that rook. Carlsen gives a giggle, tickles him right back. Narayanan retreats all the way to that starting square with a swoosh. Slurring my words here, long evening, this bishop under fire from the king saying, what are you doing back here? Get out, get back into the game. We see bishop b7 on the board, and now rook c1 met by rook to c8. Got to challenge that open file, and suddenly Magnus has a microscopic edge. The rook is undefended, loose pieces drop off. Queen a1, the best move here, but rook c2 was played. Ugly move, makes you wince, pull a face like this, because Magnus now has an opportunity to try and take advantage. He finds the move, the excellent pawn to e5, and the point is, if you capture, then there's pawn d4. This knight can't move, of course. Okay, let's capture a second pawn, but then queen takes. You've won one back, you're about to win a second, and there's problems on this long diagonal. Bishop c5 could be coming. There's still a nasty pin here. Black's doing great. So that wasn't the move played. Instead, we see queen b1 covering the loose rook, but Magnus now takes on d4, and if pawn recaptures, queen takes, black is killing it. So what does white do? Plays the best move in the position, knight takes on d5, exceptional tactical shot. But Magnus has foreseen it. We think, we don't know for sure, but this is beautiful because those two are forked. Magnus Carlsen, what to do? You can retreat back, then it gets quite sterile, stuff getting liquidated. So Magnus, he takes on d5 here, sacrificing in exchange, but look at the power of his bishops now. He first rips open the king, the pawn recaptures, and he lands this absolutely monster clergyman pair, targeting the white monarch. How to cover that pawn? White goes queen d3, great move, covering the pawn, but also a queen invasion on d2. That was a big threat in some lines. And after now bishop e4, nudging the queen back further, we see a second pawn dropping off the board. Magnus picking up big compensation. Rook d8 the best move to stop queen d7 in many of the lines, but we see a terrible move, a natural move, but the terrible pawn to h4. The idea is to give the king some room, but now queen d7 can be played. Not played. We've gone to the back cave, analysis mode, board grayed out. Where does this rook actually go? Running really short of squares, the bishop's covering here, and if rook to b8, well then there's queen c7, and we see one of the problems of pushing pawn h4, the weakness of the last move. Amazing lines, but Magnus misses it. He goes bishop to b7 here, we see rook c7, and you might be thinking, aha, go here, defend, threaten mate, or at least a big king run around. But actually, then bishop g2 comes, supported by the queen. Not the best way to play, but playable. Instead, Magnus goes for bishop to d5. Now we see bishop g2 anyway, bishop d6 the most precise starting move, but bishop e6 played. Why isn't Magnus swapping those off? Well, a lot of his compensation for the exchange lies in the fact that they work so well together. He wants to keep them on the board. King h2 now played, terrible move. Bishop d6 can come, rook goes somewhere, who knows, let's say here, and then you crash through here. You're using the fact that there's a pin here, really nice stuff, but they're low on the clock, playing on around 10 seconds. Magnus goes queen b3, we get queen d2, a kind of waiting move, perhaps looking for queen c3 check, take those ones off the board, but Magnus just crashes through here. So typical of his style, he's not afraid to let these queens leave the board despite being in exchange down. They had to go, there were too many attacking ideas, and he's seen that this endgame is super dangerous for white. The king's marching fast, you've got the 2-on-1 outside pawns. Now we see bishop h3. What to do? Do you swap the bishops? No, you don't. Bishop a2 the way to go, or bishop d5. Again, you have to keep these ones working together. Now we see bishop f1. bouncing round in a new direction, insisting on the exchange. Bishop d4 therefore played, targeting b2, so we see rook c6, you take my b pawn, I take your b pawn, so Magnus goes bishop to e6, dropping all the way back, and now pawn b3, supporting rook c4, getting out of the attack, but just a complete blunder. You can take this pawn, there's no problems, it's a playable move, but it wasn't selected. Magnus went bishop c5, perhaps to stop then the follow-up of bishop c4 here, and now best for white is to actually give back the exchange. Try and set up some kind of light squared blockade, but not played. We get the immediate bishop to c4, and now Magnus recognises this is the moment to transition. He picks up one of his bishops and slams it down on the most explosive square, c4. Pawn recaptures and the red carpet rolled out for the a pawn. This is the point. This is why Magnus cashed in. We see king g2, a3, the rook now spinning around, but how fast is this a pawn? In marches the black king. This is how the game proceeded. This pawn dropped on f7, but it doesn't matter. The a pawn winning the day here, Magnus marching in with the king, and here we see resignation, because the king is marching to b2 to shepherd home the pawn, and if you go king c1, very natural, well then you can check that king, it can't even proceed further, and you just blocked the rook, of course. Queen comes next move. This is a lost position. This was the resignation point. Awesome use of the bishops from Magnus, just generating something from absolutely nothing as per usual. I hope you enjoyed this game. For another epic game of chess, check out the video on screen, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.